terrific coverage on ESPN and ABC for NASCAR since.
He's just a really good guy.
That's right. Loves his country music. Marty Smith joins us here on the news.
I like how y'all had Eric playing. That's badass.
You guys are tight, right?
We're best friends, and in fact, we celebrated handily last evening, and we will continue that today. I'm actually in Nashville with him right now. He played last night at the CMT Awards. I covered the event for ESPN with Ricky Stenhouse Jr., our Nationwide Series champion. Mm-hmm. And Ricky and I just had a blast all day yesterday, hanging around in Nashville and checking out some of the more touristy places. And then we did the red carpet and interviewed a bunch of people about different things. And we just had a blast together. He's a great kid and a great driver. And, man, he's the next big thing in our sport. And I really enjoyed that. But as soon as we were done on that red carpet and Willie played with Zach and Darius and Toby and Jamie, I hauled freight outside to the outside stage where Eric was playing. And then we left there after he played and celebrated. Really celebrated. We had a good evening.
You know, Vince, I got to know Marty when he first was breaking in, and now he's the old veteran, and I very rarely make it out to the track. And I got to tell you, Marty, I think you do everything a driver does except for drive the car. And I wondered to myself, how come you never drove the car? I mean, you do. I mean, seriously, if people saw you in plain clothes, they wouldn't know that you're not the driver. I mean, you talk like a driver, you walk like a driver, you act like a driver. The drivers love you like you're a driver, so why don't you just drive?
Well, I'll tell you this, brother. If I drove, I'd have a lot fatter pocket. I'll tell you, man, I will say this. I cannot drive a nail. I have in my life had occasion with various drivers. You know, you've done it. That they have you out to the racetrack and you get to drive the cars or whatnot. And one year, I went to Bondurant School in Phoenix, Arizona, with Jimmy Johnson and Brian Vickers and Casey Mears and some of the guys that are Cup regulars. And we were racing, quote unquote, Corvette Z06s. And I am the worst drive. Like on the street, I got it handled, but I can't drive. I can't race. I wasn't born to do it, and I don't really understand the talent that those guys have. They make turning left look really, really easy, and it's really, really hard.
Right.
But if anybody ever wants to hire me to drive and pay me the fat check, I'm in, bro. And you come on, we'll have a big party.
That's right. I'll be your PR guy. Now, speaking about driving, the guy that keeps resurfacing, that still has a job, despite perhaps the worst PR image ever in the sport, but he can drive, is Kurt Busch.
Yeah. I'm kind of shocked. I'm shocked that this topic came up.
Yeah, I'm sure that you are.
Let me tell you guys about Kurt Busch. It's interesting that this happened when it did, because I don't know if you guys had occasion to see last Saturday morning, before the Dover NASCAR race, nationwide race, before Kurt's issue with Bob Pockers, a piece that I did about a week ago or 10 days ago with the Busch brothers together aired. And the piece was more about how this year, more than ever, they need one another because they have to repair their respective images. After last year in Texas, Kyle lost his mind for a few minutes and purposefully wrecked Ron Hornaday in the NASCAR Truck Series race and was benched. And then Kurt, of course, had the nuclear meltdown with Jerry Punch at Miami and got himself fired from Penske. So these are two guys that are absurdly talented. You will never, throughout the history of NASCAR, find anyone with more God-given ability. The issue with them is that emotional disconnect, and them working on that this year. Well, one thing that did not make the piece, television piece, that did make my written piece, that I found to be extremely poignant from them both, I asked them, I said, what impact their father, Tom, was a tireless worker, and he's the guy that instilled in them this racing talent and this racing vigor and this, racing desire. And I said, what impact did your father's approach have on you two as the men you've become? And their answer somewhat stopped me in my tracks. Kurt started the answer and said, we never learned politics. We learned how to work hard. And Kyle cut him off and said, I agree. We never really learned social skills, but damn, we can drive.
Yeah.
And that really sums them up well to me.
Well, you're right, Marty.
Fast forwarding to the end of that day, when Kurt did lose his temper with a reporter, he is now going to set out Pocono as a result. This is a guy, again, who's trying to repair his image and, quite frankly, save his career. Because when you have an opportunity with Roger Penske and it's foiled because of your attitude, that's a tough sell to other owners and sponsors. And then when you have this meltdown again, it only affirms that problem. So I think he has a hell of a road ahead, guys. I don't know what it means for his future, but I don't know if you guys saw what his team owner now, James Finch, said this week.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if this guy doesn't fix it, if the plane's going down, I'm not going to be in it with him. Because this is an owner trying to get a sponsor that hasn't shown up. And in NASCAR, the corporate dollar makes the wheel turn. So I don't care if you're Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. If you don't look great in front of the camera and conduct yourself great in front of the camera as well as you do or better behind the wheel, it's a tough battle.
Well, you're right, Marty, and I always talk about long for the days of Dale Earnhardt and Sterling Marlin and those guys, even the Allisons, not the most polished guys in the world, but the difference is the big dollars now. I mean, they
didn't have to be.
Yeah, I thought about the answer Kurt Busch gave Pockris. I think I heard that every track from Dale, every track from Dale Earnhardt. He tell a lot of guys.
You couldn't be more right. And I have said this about that situation. That happens on a weekly basis, and not just with Kurt. Somebody gets undressed. The core media, I'm saying, every weekend. We've all experienced it. You've experienced it. I've absolutely experienced it a lot. It's just the difference is it's the person, and it's the fact that it was on camera,
right,
and it's the fact that it was aired. I mean, that's the bottom line with this situation. Because trust me, I've been called everything but Marty a lot. It's part of the job. Here's my thing, too. Bob did not ask anything out of line.
No, he didn't.
I mean, Kurt said on our air that he can't pick his nose because he's on probation. Well, all Bob did was follow that up. So I just, I'm unfortunately baffled by it, quite frankly.
Well, the other thing I wonder about, Marty, when we talk about the driving now, and I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of guys from open wheel background. They don't like getting their fenders dinged in, and I think about some of the complaining going on, and I think about some of the, well, let's race smart, which means race the last 50 laps. And that's something else that's changed since the mid '90s when it was really rolling. I mean, I can't imagine someone complaining, and I keep using Dale Earnhardt Sr. because let's face it, I mean, he was the guy that made the sport go. Can you imagine somebody saying, "Yeah, that daggone Earnhardt, that 3-car, halfway through the race, he was just racing me too hard"? Are you kidding me? Do you know what he would do to Tony Stewart? He would turn him upside down and put him against the wall. I mean, he really would.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, and I don't really have an answer for that. I know exactly what you mean, and we do hear it all the time. And it's funny, along those lines, one of the greatest testaments to Mark Martin from his competitors is that he lets them go when he's not as fast. And these days, when you do hear that so often, especially with cars that are battling for the lucky dog position, they race the leader like hell. And I wouldn't, if I were them. It happened last weekend with Jamie McMurray. I think it was Jamie. And he wound up getting the lucky dog instead of Jeff Gordon as a result of racing Jimmy Johnson as hard as he did, and ended up finishing far better for it. Mm-hmm. So I don't begrudge anybody. Now, I know that look, here's another thing, though. Contextually, There's driver code that you and me, and I don't care how long you've been around this business, unless you sit in that car, you don't know driver. You don't know what they know. They know a whole lot more about what they're doing than we do in terms of etiquette, in terms of long memories. So I will say that on their, in their defense. But on the surface, you're right. It's all, we're racing, man.
We're visiting with Marty Smith, ESPN Racing Reporter here on the new Sentinel Sports Page, and Vince Ferrara, along with Mike Griffith from the Knoxville News Sentinel. Marty, we had Trevor Bayne on last week.
Great kid.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts from covering him. What do you think about Trevor Bayne?
He's a great kid. He has his priorities in line. He's a good driver. I do wonder, where his future's going to go, because he has ability and he's a good-looking boy who does the right things and says the right things and is a great role model. The problem, it goes back to what's wrong with NASCAR right now. You got to come with money, even when you've won the Daytona 500. If an owner doesn't come and say, we're giving you this car full time, I wonder where his path is going to go. But it will not be for lack of talent, ability, disposition, etc. I really like him.
Why not just shrink these races? Why not
that's that's my biggest beef.
Yeah, I mean,
people ask me all the time, Mike. They ask me all the time, what would you do if you were Mike Hilton? I would do two things. And there's a lot of politics involved, so it's easy to say. It's easy to armchair quarterback this. But I don't care. I do it all the time.
Yep.
The vast majority of the races need to be shorter, because the attention span of the consumer is so much shorter. And that will then prompt, along the lines that you're noting there, you gotta get to the front now. You gotta go. You can't sit back and wait for the next pit stop. Go now. This is gonna sound crazy, but to me, some of the best races we have all year are New Hampshire. They're 300-mile races.
Yep.
You gotta go, man. And I also believe that it's time for us to stop messing around with football. You guys are in Knoxville, Tennessee. There's a lot of NASCAR fans in Knoxville, Tennessee. But if it's a Saturday night 7:30 start at Richmond, Virginia, or the Tennessee Volunteers are playing the Georgia Bulldogs in Neyland Stadium, who wins for your viewers?
Right.
There's no debate. So if it were a perfect world for me, let's start on Valentine's Day. Let's race like hell 28 times, and let's finish on Labor Day. And let's stop battling football. Let's leave them wanting more. The reason the NFL is the biggest property in the sporting landscape in our country is you get 5 months of football.
Well,
and the other 7 months you're clamoring for it.
See, this is why I read this guy, Vince. Tell him how they can get more Marty. I mean, I met Marty, and when I met him, I knew within the first few events he covered. I mean, this guy, he was in lockstep with Earnhardt Jr. This was at a time when Earnhardt Jr. didn't trust anybody, but he trusted Marty because Marty knows what the heck he's talking about.
Marty, where can people see you?
That means a lot to me. I appreciate it, Mike.
What do you have coming up this week or in the near future on ESPN, Marty?
I will say this. I've been, for about 18 months or so, I stopped writing as much on ESPN.com because of the television side of my job just really took a lot of precedence and it took my time away from it. But this year, my editors at .com, it was cool. We were at the Tony Stewart's championship thing in Las Vegas, and my editor walks over to me and he goes, "I really need you, man." I said, "Okay, that's fine. If I can write what I want, whatever I want."
Right.
And he was like, "Great. Y'all, my weekly column called The Six, it's every Friday on ESPN.com. I write a whole lot more about life than I write about racing." And it's neat. Like, it's fun. Mike, you're a writer. It's cool to have the space to just write. I mean, I've written about my farm. I wrote about my grandmother one time. And it's cool, man. People really dig it. And that really means a lot to me that people enjoy it. And this week I'm going to write about, for this Friday, one of the missions that I had while I was here in Nashville and doing the red carpet thing, especially with Ricky Stenhouse. Ricky's a kid that has a lot of talent, but was one wreck away from packing up his stuff and heading back to Mississippi. Because his first year in the Nationwide Series with Jack Roush, he hit everything but the lottery. And he came back last year because Jack believed in him and won a championship. And I wanted to do a parallel between Charlotte, North Carolina for race car drivers and Nashville, Tennessee for aspiring artists. The climate's ice cold, and the chances that you're going to make it are minuscule. And there's a lot of parallels for artists here trying to make it and for drivers there trying to make it. And I asked a bunch of these artists, big-time artists, Lady Antebellum Aldine, on and on, Brantley Gilbert, describe for me the challenge of the climb, and their answers were really cool. And Ricky's he was very introspective with me about that yesterday as well. So I'm going to write that for Friday. So be on the lookout for that on Friday.
That'd be interesting.
ESPN.com and ESPN television as well. Marty, loved it. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Anytime you guys want me, man, holler at me. I really appreciate it. You guys do a great job. Mike, it's good hearing from you, buddy.
Yes, sir. You take care, Marty. You're doing a great job, man.
Thanks, Marty. Have a good one.